They thought 2024 would be the year things calmed down. Maybe the world would take a breath. But behind quiet forests, beneath flickering streetlights, and inside ordinary homes, something was watching, something was waiting. These aren't just tales to give you goosebumps. These are the real stories that chilled even the most skeptical minds, and they happened this year. Story 1. The Silent Passenger, back in February. In the cold outskirts of Portland, Oregon, a rideshare driver named Lisa picked up a late-night fare from a quiet neighborhood. The passenger was a man in a black hoodie. Didn't say a word, just got in and pointed forward. Lisa assumed he was tired or maybe drunk. No big deal. But halfway through the ride, her rearview mirror fogged up. Then her windows, her heater was off. When she looked back, the seat was empty. Startled, she pulled over and turned on all the interior lights. No one there. She called the company, told them what happened. They said the last location pinged was at an abandoned rest stop. She checked her dashcam footage. The man never opened the door, never got in. But the timestamp showed someone had been in the car, and even creepier, a black hoodie was left on the seat. Story 2. The Screaming Forest of Quebec. 2 backpackers from Montreal. Chloe and Renee were hiking through Mont Tremblant National Park in March. The park was still half frozen, mostly empty. Perfect for solitude, or so they thought. Around dusk, they started hearing what sounded like screaming. Not an animal, not human either. It would echo once every few minutes, distant but bone-chilling. They decided to camp early, too freaked out to keep walking. At around 10 a.m., Renee woke up to someone or something brushing against their tent. Chloe woke up next. And then the screaming was back, but this time it wasn't distant. It was right outside. Renee grabbed his flashlight, opened the tent flap, and saw nothing. But their campfire, which had burned out hours earlier, was suddenly blazing again, full flame.
No explanation. Story 3.
The man in the drain. This one made the local news in April, but it never made national headlines. Maybe because it's too weird to be real. In Atlanta, Georgia, a family started hearing strange voices under their bathroom floor. They thought it was the plumbing, but the voice was too clear. It kept saying the same phrase over and over. Don't leave the drain open. The father, curious but not alarmed, removed the floor drain cover. Nothing unusual until their 6-year-old son claimed he saw a man's face looking up from the hole. The next night, the entire bathroom flooded. Plumbers came and found something bizarre wedged inside the pipe, a rusted Polaroid photo of a man's face. Mouth open wide like he was screaming. The pipe was sealed off permanently, and the voice stopped. But sometimes, they say, late at night when the house is quiet, you can still hear knocking from beneath the floor. Story 4. The Vanishing Boy of Route 19, a long stretch of Route 19 in West Virginia has always had its share of urban legends. But in May, a truck driver named Jesse ran into something that shook him to the core. He was driving through a heavy fog at 2 a.m. when he saw a young boy standing in the road, barefoot and wearing pajamas. He slammed the brakes, jumped out, and ran to him, but the boy vanished before his eyes. He called the police. When they arrived, Jesse was still shaking. The weirdest part? They told him another driver had reported the exact same thing 2 nights earlier. Same spot, same boy. After a short investigation, they found an old, barely marked graveyard just a few hundred feet from the road. One of the headstones was for a boy named Thomas, died in 1973. On May 5th, the same night, Jesse saw him. Story 5. The Night Visitor in Tokyo in June. A woman named Yuki posted a series of now-deleted TikToks showing bizarre activity in her apartment in Shibuya. She lived on the 10th floor, alone. At first, she thought she was sleepwalking, waking up to doors wide open, lights on, microwave running. But she decided to install a motion camera in her living room. What it captured is disturbing. Around 2:11 a.m., a tall figure stepped into frame from the hallway. Not from the front door, from the inside. It stood still for 5 minutes, not moving, not blinking, just watching. Then it walked into the kitchen and disappeared behind the fridge, literally vanished on Kamarish. She moved out 2 days later. She posted one last video before her account disappeared. In it, the same figure was standing behind her, caught in the reflection of her window. Story 6. The Stranger in the Crawl Space in July. A woman named Naomi, living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, started noticing an awful smell in her home. At first, she thought something had died in the walls. Then things escalated, drawers left open, her keys going missing, lights turning on when no one was in the room. She thought she was going crazy one night. She woke up to a loud thud in the attic. She grabbed a broomstick and climbed up. Nothing. Just insulation and dust. But when she came back down, her hallway lights were all on, and her fridge was open. She called the police. Finally convinced someone was inside her home, they searched the place from top to bottom. What they found made her stomach turn. Inside a narrow crawl space beneath her kitchen, just barely big enough to fit a person, they found a sleeping bag, empty food wrappers, and a phone charger plugged into an outlet beneath the house. Someone had been living there. For how long? Number 1 knows he was never caught. Story 7. The Window Knocker of Wales in August. A family staying at a remote Airbnb cottage in North Wales reported hearing knocking on their bedroom window every night at exactly 2:44 a.m. the first night. They brushed it off. Maybe a branch. The second night, same time, but this time it was a slow, rhythmic knock. Knock, knock. Knock on the third night. They decided to film it. They turned off all the lights and waited. Sure enough, at 2:44 a.m., the knocking began. What they captured made them flee the house before sunrise. In the video, a figure could be seen behind the window, not knocking with a hand, but with its forehead, tapping it gently against the glass over and over again. The owner of the Airbnb claimed no one else had keys. The property was fully fenced in, but when police arrived the next day, they found footprints, barefoot, human-sized, circling the house. And they all led nowhere. Just vanished in the middle of the garden. Story 8. The church bell that rang itself in September. A group of amateur ghost hunters visited a Longabandan church outside Salem, Massachusetts. The kind of place that feels cold even when the sun's out. The bell tower hadn't worked in years. The ropes all cut and rusted. Yet the night they decided to camp near it, the bell rang 3 times at exactly midnight. There was no wind, no animals, no one near. The bell tower. It rang again at 3 a.m., even louder. One of the group members swore they saw someone standing at the top of the tower, looking down at them. They ran for the car the next day. They came back with a drone to get footage. The drone flew up to the tower window and paused. In the final seconds of the footage, before the drone cut out, a pale face can be seen peeking through the crack in the wood. They never released the full footage. Said it wasn't meant to be seen. But some blurry screenshots have been floating around Reddit since then. Story 9. The Disappearing Couple of Iceland. This one has no clear ending, and maybe that's what makes it the scariest. An American couple vacationing in Iceland decided to rent a car and drive to some less touristy spots along the west coast. They sent photos from a remote lighthouse around noon. That was the last anyone ever heard from them. When they didn't return to their hotel, authorities searched. For days, they eventually found their car parked on a dirt trail miles away from any main road. Inside were both of their wallets, passports, and phones. One phone still recording. The video was only 7 seconds long. It shows them walking, laughing, then suddenly freezing. The camera drops to the ground and faces upward, capturing one final second of the sky as something dark passes overhead. No bodies were found. No tracks. No signs of foul play. Just silence. Story 10. The Man Who Vanished, mid-sentence, in November. A man named Carlton Hayes was on a Zoom call with his sister in London. He lived alone in a small flat in Toronto. They were talking normally, joking around, when she noticed him suddenly go still. She thought his screen had frozen, but then she heard him whisper, "Wait, someone's here." Then he stood up, walked out of frame, and never returned. His apartment door was locked from the inside. No signs of a break-in. No forced entry. It's just his laptop still running, the Zoom call frozen in place. His sister called the police immediately. When they arrived, They found his phone in the living room. A cup of tea still warm on the table, and something else, a single black glove, soaked in water, sitting neatly on his pillow. No one's heard from him since. His case remains open, one of the most baffling unsolved disappearances of 2024. Story 11. The Voice in the Wall's final story in December. Just days before the new year, a man named Tyler moved into a cheap basement apartment in Chicago. He'd just gone through a breakup and was looking for a quiet place to reset. The unit was small, dimly lit, but clean. Nothing seemed off at first until the second night, as he lay in bed scrolling on his phone, he heard a whisper coming from the wall beside him. At first, it was so soft he thought he imagined it. Then it happened. Again. A woman's voice, almost too soft to make out, repeating the same thing over and over. "Can you hear me now?" Tyler thought it was maybe an old vent connecting to another unit, ignored it. But by the fourth night, the voice wasn't whispering anymore. It was louder, closer, and it didn't wait until nighttime. He started hearing it in the morning, while brushing his teeth, while showering. Even while he was on the phone, he called the landlord, who claimed no one had lived in the adjacent unit for over 2 years. It had been sealed off due to a fire. Curious and terrified, Tyler unscrewed a vent cover in his living room wall and shined a flashlight inside. There was nothing. It's just brick, insulation, and a small gap between walls. But carved into the brick, scratched in with what looked like fingernails, were 3 words: "I hear you," that same night. His neighbor from upstairs called the police after hearing screaming from Tyler's unit. When they arrived, the apartment was empty. No sign of a break-in, but Tyler's shoes, phone, and wallet were still inside. On the floor, written in what looked like ash, was the same phrase, "Can you hear me now?" A chilling reminder we think of horror as something distant, something that belongs in books, movies, and the far corners of our imagination. But every one of these stories came from real people in real places, normal days that turned dark, familiar sounds that became sinister. Moments that remind us the scariest things don't always wear masks or crawl out from under the bed. Sometimes they knock softly on your window at night. Sometimes they whisper your name from the walls. And sometimes they don't need to be seen at all to find you. If 2024 taught us anything, it's that the world is full of things we still don't understand. And some of those things are watching right now.